welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria, and welcome to my 24-25 video. I decided to do this video because I wanted to be like all the other girlies, and I thought it would be fun to participate, and that's pretty much it. So if by chance you aren't familiar, because I wasn't familiar for a very long time about what 20 for 25 or 24 for 24 is, these are the 25 books that I want to have read by the end of 2025. I went through both my physical TBR and my Kindle TBR to pull these books together, and I tried not to do too much overlap from some of the challenges that I'm doing throughout the year, but these were just ones that I hadn't put on that list, so I knew if I did put it on some list, perhaps I wouldn't actually read them. I have my first stacks here, and I have some on the floor. These were looking very empty because I pulled lots of books off of my shelf. Let's dive right in to our 20 for 25. The first book should be fairly familiar. This is The Teller of Small Fortunes by Julie Leong. I heard a lot about this video. I believe it came out in November of 2024, and it was my first book of the month choice. I was really interested in this. Not only does it have a cat on the cover, which just makes me happy, but it's supposed to be a cozy found family little adventure about our main character here, whose name is Tao, who's an immigrant fortune teller that travels between villages, her trusty mule for company. And she ends up getting recruited to help an ex-mercenary and a reformed thief look for a lost child, and that is the premise. But I know that Katie from Katie Marie Reads talked about this book, and she really loved it, and I trust Katie, and I think I will enjoy this cozy little fantasy as well. The second book on our list of 20 for 25 is The Kingdom of Copper by S.A. Chakraborty. This is the second book in the City of Brass trilogy, and I absolutely love The City of Brass. I think I gave it 4.5 stars, and I love The Adventures of Mina al-Sarafi. I think I mentioned that I really do think S.A. Chakraborty has quickly become one of my favorite authors, and this picks up where first book, The City of Copper, left off, and it does seem that we are going to be following both Nahir's and Ollie's stories after that situation. So I am excited to pick this series up again. Even though this is a pretty dense book, I will say when I read The City of Brass, I was shocked at how quickly it read, considering how dense of a fantasy it really is. She just has a great writing style. So I want to continue with the series. I also want to get the final one in the trilogy, which is, I don't know if it'll be in here. I don't know. Oh, The Empire of Gold. So I want to get to the third one and finish this trilogy, along with the second book in The Adventures of Mina al-Sarafi. Our third book on this list, pulling in another cozy fantasy that I happen to have on my shelf, and that is The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. This was up for a Goodreads Choice Awards in the romantasy section. However, most people I know who've read this book were kind of surprised by that and would say this is more of a cozy fantasy with a little bit of romance in it, and it just sounds right up my alley. We have somebody who comes to this little town and tries to build a spell shop and, you know, meets new people. There's a bit of a romance, and it just sounds like something I want to read. I've wanted to read it the moment I saw this cover. It just screamed I would like it. So I definitely want to read this one this year. I also know that Sarah Beth Durst has a second book, like companion book, called The Greenhouse? The Magical Greenhouse? Something like that. I'll put it here. Coming out. So I want to pick that one up as well. The next book's on our list has been on my shelf for quite some time. That is The Beast Player by Nahako Uehashi. And the reason I picked this up, one, the cover, obviously, but two, it was kind of touted as having a very like Studio Ghibli vibe, and it is about Eileen, and she has like, there's like these beasts, and then she has this instrument that can communicate with the beast, and gets her into a bit of a situation. And it just sounds really nice, and I'm wanting to read this, so I'm putting it on this list so I will finally read it. All right, next book, Fable by R.F. Kuang. I tried, this is gonna be a hot take everybody, hot take. I tried to read The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang and I DNF'd it. Maybe your girl's just not into a unlikable main character. I don't know, I just wasn't feeling it. But I think that perhaps Babel will be more up my alley. I'm not gonna go too deep into what this book is because obviously Babel is been all over the internet since it was published, but I've had it on my shelf for a while. I do love a good dark academia, so I'm hoping I will enjoy this one better. I know R.F. Kuang also has another book coming out this year, so we'll see. We shall see. Perhaps this will change my mind. Next. This one I'm very excited about. I do believe I will love it. This is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. It's about this girl who, she has like this monster that's in her head called the Nightmare, and she ends up on this journey. I don't know. It's supposed to have like a really cool magic system. She's got like this dark nightmare in her head, and she kind of gets pulled into cure her world. Blunder is like consumed with this dark magic, and she kind of gets pulled into trying to help fix it. And I heard it's a fun little time. I heard the magic system is very interesting, so I'm looking forward to reading it. I think this is like fantasy romance, not romantasy from what I understand, so I'm really hoping I'll like it. I haven't picked up the second book yet because I wanted to make sure I liked this one first, but I definitely do want to read it. It sounds a little dark. I like a little dark fantasy, so we'll see. Let's move on to our next stack. Next book on this list, wait, where did it go? Where is How to Steal a Galaxy? I have it backwards. See, we're doing well. Next book on this list we've talked about. This was my first book that I purchased here in 2025, and this is How to Steal a Galaxy by Beth Revis. It is the follow-up to Full Speed to Crash Landing, which I put in my top 10 for 2024. This is a cute, quick little like sci-fi romance, and we continue on with these characters. I have seen that some people have not liked this one as much as the first one, so I'm a little nervous about it, but I am still going to read this. I mean, girl is only 172 pages, and it's also like a short book as well, so even less than that realistically. So either way, I'm going to read it. This next book has been on many a list for me, and I don't know why I can't seem to get to it, and that is Bookshops and Bone Dust, the prequel to Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. I even cosplayed as Tantry, so I really have no excuse to why I haven't read this book yet. It's been sitting on my shelf for a while, but I am intending on reading it. I also have this beautiful edition of Legends and Lattes right here, which I did a book haul for. I got this for Christmas for my stepdad. Totally gorgeous. It's like this leather bound one. It's so cool. So, yeah, I want to read it, especially because it seems like the sequel to Legends and Lattes is going to focus on this little ratkin here. So, that is the plan. Next book on our list is another one that came out in 2024 that I thought I would really like and just haven't picked up yet, and that is Strange Beast by Susan Jane Morris. This is a sapphic detective dark academia story. Oh yes, Samantha Harker is the daughter of Dracula's killers, and she works as a researcher for the Royal Society for the Study of Abnormal Phenomenon. And then she ends up working with Dr. Helena Moriarty to resolve some case. So, I have it, I want to read it, I'm putting it on this list. The next book I actually do not have yet, but I want to read because the second book is coming out and Miss Deanna Raybourn is going to be coming to Murder by the Book in Houston in March, and I want to get that book signed. I also want to get my first Veronica Speedwell book signed. I have The Curious Beginnings up on my shelf somewhere over here, and so I want to get that signed, but I need to read the first one before I get the second one, obviously. So that book is Killers of a Certain Age. So it is about 4 women friends who were clandestine international assassins. They're essentially targeted. They have to like figure things out and teach the board a lesson for going after women of a certain age. So that is basically the premise. It sounds something cute. I do like that we have some older women characters. I always enjoy that. So want to read that one. It'll also be something that I've read outside of her Veronica Speedwell series because I've only read that from Deanna Raybourn. Speaking of Deanna Raybourn, I am putting the 5th book of the Veronica Speedwell series on my list, and that is A Murderous Relation. This seems to focus a little bit more on Veronica's interesting family history, if you will. For those of you who haven't read the book, haven't read these books, I won't spoil any of that for you. But it does also seem like Jack the Ripper is going to be in this book. If you haven't read this book, Veronica is a lepidopterist, and she ends up basically partnering with this guy Stoker, and they solve mysteries and have a lot of tension, and I absolutely love this series. I've loved the first 4 books, and I am ready to pick up another one and catch up with the series. I think there are 9 right now. So I've got this one, looking to get more. Next, a book I don't think I may have spoken about once when I picked it up, but it sounds so interesting. I got it from a local bookstore. It is Driftwood by Marie Brennan. So this is I would kind of say like a sci-fi, like truly sci-fi fantasy, where this Driftwood is like a place where like worlds slowly crumble. Like they literally describe it as like a strange place of slow apocalypse where continents eventually crumble into mere neighborhoods pulled inexorably toward the center in the crush. Cultures clash, countries fall, and everything eventually disintegrates. It seems to focus on this character Last, who has died, and people trying to commemorate him, but also figure out exactly who this character was. And I don't know, it sounded so interesting to me. This was a used book, and I was just like, what an interesting concept. So, I'm not sure if this is in a series or not, but also this is the author of the Memoirs of Lady Trent series, which I thoroughly enjoyed the first one of that series, which was A Natural History of Dragons, which I picked up from the library. So I definitely want to continue that series as well, but when I saw it was the same author and just the concept was so interesting, and it seems like a pretty short novel, I thought it was worth a read, and I haven't read it yet. So I'm putting on my 20 for 25 because I thought it'd be interesting to talk about a book I haven't really seen anywhere else being chatted about on the internet. If you've read it, let me know because I'd love to hear your thoughts. Next pile, the very opposite. This is a book I've heard lots and lots about from many people on the World Wide Web, and that is Monstrilio by Gerardo Samano Cordova. And this is about a mother who in grief keeps a piece of her son's lungs, and it turns into like a sentient monster of a being. And I've heard many people praise this book, and I am not so much a horror girly, but I'm trying to expand, and Monstrilio sounds like something that I would be interested in. So I've had it on my shelf for a hot minute, and I really want to read it this year, so that is why it is on this list. Next is another T. Kingfisher. Now, I'm excited to read this one because I just finished my first T. King. Oh, no, there's something on top of that. I could have hit myself in the head. I finished my first T. Kingfisher, where, oh, I almost said Where Sleeping Girls Lie. What Moves the Dead, and gave it 5 stars, my first 5 stars of 2025. So I am thoroughly excited to read Thornhedge, another short T. Kingfisher work, and I do believe it's a retelling of a fairy tale, and we have a frog who, a toad who is trying to save a princess of sorts, from what I understand. I don't know much about it, but I've had it on my shelf, and this is super cute. See, like, this is cute. I didn't need this one. This one's adorbs. So I want to read it. I want to see if I continue like T. Kingfisher, because I really, really did enjoy Moves the Dead. Speaking of authors that I thoroughly enjoy, this book I've had since DragonCon of 2023, and it is the Cinderspire series. This is the first one in the series by Jim Butcher. As anybody who has been at my channel knows, just reread all of the Dresden Files in 2024 and caught up with the series. So I am patiently waiting for 12 months to hit the bookshelves so I can read it and add it to, on the very top of my shelf, I have all of the Dresden File books. So waiting for that. But Heather did me a solid. For those of you who are new to my channel, Heather is a best friend of the channel. Hello, Heather. She actually got this signed for me when she went and saw Jim Butcher in 2023 while I was there. I forget what I was doing at DragonCon that I couldn't go with him. I think he was just signing early or something. But if I am correct, Mr. Brandon Sanderson said that this book was a kind of inspired by this Reddit thread where Jim Butcher was basically like, bad ideas can become good books. It just takes, you know, a person who knows how to write and knows how to tell a story. And something about like Pokemon and something else. I believe it's the Cinderspire series. Or maybe it's not this one. Maybe it's his fantasy one. He has like a fantasy series too that I've never read. I've only read the Dresden Files. But I have this on my shelf, and I figured since I am patiently waiting for the next Dresden Files to come out, I should go ahead and give this baby a try. I'm a big Jim Butcher fan, so I might as well explore a different series whilst I wait for the next book in the Dresden Files. Here's another short book. We love to see it. I also picked this up on a whim. This is In the Shadow of the Fall by Toby Ogundarin. And this is about, she's a priestess and she's supposed to serve these things called orishas. And she can't, for some reason, they won't speak to her. And so she's like desperate to speak to one of them, and instead she gets a vision, and apparently this terrible vision pulls her into some centuries old war. And that's all I know. But this cover was super cool. And I would love to diversify my fantasy authors, and so I thought this was a great opportunity to introduce myself to somebody new. It's been sitting on my shelf. I want to read it. I want to introduce myself to somebody new, and then hopefully pick up the second one in this book, in this duology. So this book has been on quite a few of my videos. For some reason, I just don't want to finish this series. I think because a lot of people have said that this last book just didn't live up to the other three. This is the fourth book in the Mirror Visitor series, The Storm of Echoes. Apparently it just kind of goes off the rails from the other three books. So I've just been putting it off, but I need to read it. I need to finish this series. I cannot let everybody else's opinions determine what I read. I need to be a big girl, put my big girl pants on, and finish this series because I do love this series and I think about it often. And that's all I got for you. Now we are moving into a couple books that I actually have on my Kindle that I'm putting on my 24/25. So the first one is The Keeper of the Enchanted Rooms. I have this on my Kindle, and it also came with the audiobook, I guess, some kind of special thing. You have a writer who is estranged from his family and suddenly inherits a remote estate in Narragansett Bay, and it's been uninhabited for a long time. And he ends up asking for a Hulda Larkin of the Boston Institute for Keeping of Enchanted Rooms has been trained in taming such structures in order to preserve their historical and magical significance. She understands the dangers of bestelled homes. Given to tantrum, she advises in Merritt's best interest to make Wimble House their ally. To do that, she'll need to move in too. Yeah. So it sounds like cozy fantasy, possibly with romance. I don't know. It sounded cute. I picked it up on Kindle and I want to read it. Keeper of the Enchanted Runes. Plus I have the audiobook, so I think that makes it even more tantalizing to pick up. The next book is also another book I have on my Kindle, and that is The Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. I've wanted to read this book since the second one was out, and the second one looked super interesting, and then I was like, oh, this is the second book in what I believe is a trilogy, and so I've been meaning to read it, and I have it on my Kindle now. It is on Kindle Unlimited if you also want to read it, and so it's on my 20 for 25. There's vampires. I'm not even gonna give you a description of it. It's like a very dark story, which like more like high fantasy vampire story, which I was super interested in. So not like a typical vampire. We're doing more like monster, or we're doing more horror, or we're doing, you know, kind of romance. So it just seemed like a different type of vampire story, and one that I was intrigued to pick up. So I'm gonna read it, and if I like it, I'm gonna read the second one, and eventually, if I really like them, I will have them on my shelves. But I first need to read the first one, so that is why it's on my 20 for 25. So I believe this is our 19th book here, possibly. Editing Victoria will tell me. But this book is another one that I have seen and heard lovely things about, and that is Dungeon Crawler Carl, and something that I've been interested in. It sounds silly, it sounds fun. I saw this on KU and I was like, okay, I definitely want to read this. I've been wanting to read it anyways, so I'm putting on my 20 for 25 because it sounds like it's right up my alley. Gavin loved it, which means I want to love it too. So yeah. On our next book is another physical book and another book of the month book, and that is Babylonia by Constanza Casati. I did a haul with this book where I kind of went a little more into this, but it's a historical fiction about the only queen of Assyria. So I want to read this. I love a historical fiction. This one sounds like it's got some fun things going on in it, and yeah, can't wait. Kind of switching gears here to a classic that I've had on my shelf since my trip to Boston like 6-7 years ago, and that is The House of Seven Gables by Nathaniel Hawthorne. I'm giving Mr. Hawthorne a second chance because I never really liked Scarlet Letter, but I picked this up because we went to the House of Seven Gables, which you can go to in Salem, and thought it was such a fun little place to visit, and they were selling the book. Thus, it has been sitting on my shelves since, because I wasn't really in my reading era when I picked this book up. I had a big old reading slump for quite some time. So we're gonna get to her this year. And then we'll talk about the House of Seven Gables. I don't have any pictures. I have no idea where the pictures from that trip are, but we can talk a little bit about it. It'll be fun, don't you think? Another book that has been sitting on my shelves, we're gonna keep going in this vein here of some classics, is I have had from, and you can tell because this is from a used bookstore that I used to work at and patron for a very long time, but I have The Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave, written by Frederick Douglass. So short, have been meaning to read this for forever. I'm going to read it this year. 20 for 25, we're going to read it. And now we have two nonfictions, our only nonfictions on this list. And one of them is a chunky boy, lady, very voluptuous lady. This one I was inspired by another YouTuber who is not a booktuber. She is a fashion historian on YouTube, and that is Miss Abby Cox. And she had talked about this book. I will find the video and link it down below because I thought it was a really cool video, but this is basically about essentially how women were able to make their way as seamstresses and have their own businesses. If you think of the modiste in Bridgerton, this will kind of give you an idea of that, of women being able to make their own way in the fashion world and really be able to build their own lives. So this is about the history of that, and I thought that was really fascinating and wanted to learn more, so she recommended this book. And I think if I read like, you know, a chapter or two a month throughout the year, I should be able to get through this book and it will be a pleasurable experience. And I do think this will also be helpful because My next video coming out, I'm going to be talking about my newest series, which is going to be titled Whistle Down Wishes. It's a series where I'm going to be reading classics written by women throughout the year. I'm going to be reading one book a month. And so I think it will also be fun to read a chapter along with that, because I feel like it will probably add a little bit of context to some of the novels that I'm reading, and I think it'll be really fun. This brings us to the final book in my 24-25, a book that has been on my shelves, a nonfiction, and I even have the journal for it, is Becoming by Michelle Obama. It's been out for a hot minute, but I've been meaning to read it. Memoirs aren't really my bag, but I've just always found Michelle Obama to be fascinating, and I really do want to read this. I enjoyed the mini doc that she had based on it, so I want to actually read the book. And then there is even like I mentioned, a little journal that goes with it. And with that, we have gone through my 20 for 25. I am really excited to dive into this. I hope that I can really whittle down both my physical and Kindle TBR this year and get to some books that I've really been meaning to get to. If you are doing a 20 for 25, feel free to link it below, or just let me know which book you think you would enjoy the most out of your 20 for 25, or which one you're most excited to get to this year. And if you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. I upload every Wednesday and most Sundays. And until next time, I hope you read a good book. I hope you find some joy. And most importantly, I hope you do something that makes the world a better place. And I will see you in my next one. Bye!